I'm Mark Ramsey. I'm really pleased to be talking to the head of Fig Media One. That would be the one and only Bill Figgenshoe. Bill is, of course, a well-known figure in radio circles over the years. You've run pretty much just about everything that hasn't run you, Bill. Isn't that right?
Right. And then in some cases, they run me off.
And Fig Media One is a company that's built to kind of establish and position and brand media products and products that might have media extensions, because everything's media to one degree or another, isn't it, nowadays?
Right. Yes.
Fig, one of the things we wanted to talk about, one of the things you mentioned me once before, was this idea of what you described as branded personalities. And you wrote me a note saying branded personalities are going to be big and then $3 in the future. Can you talk about what you mean by branded personalities and why that upside is so great?
Sure, Mark. You know, the thing that strikes me about brands and branding is that looking at the new technology that's coming out, I think that revenue-producing personalities, let's talk about radio for a second. If you're an equity morning show, you have a big morning show in a market, and you have high ratings, and you generate a lot of revenue, I believe that the issue is going to change over the years because people are not going to select, given the technology that I'm looking at, Siri, Entune, Ford's product, Sync, Ford Sync. We know that technology is driving, in fact, a lot of car sales. But people are going to select their personalities by brand name, not necessarily by station. I believe people are loyal to people, not the delivery system. So, for instance, if I say, oh, let's put on Rush Limbaugh, or, oh, let's put on Mike and Kate, the mixed morning show, people are going to select it by brands. They're not going to say, oh, say, Siri, tune to 101.1 and in Morning Drive. The consumer is now in control. And because the consumer is in control, what time does the morning show begin? The morning show begins when I say it begins, not necessarily at 6 a.m. So if I have Siri, which was announced last week, Mark, or the week before, I think, it's going to be in General Motors cars, it's going to be in Mercedes, and I realize it takes a few years to get this technology in. But it's starting with younger people. They're putting the technology in the low-end cars, Ford Focus, the smaller cars, in addition to the big luxury cars. But the issue is going to be that I'm going to select ESPN. I'm going to select Glenn Beck. I'm going to select Norman Goldman. I'm going to select Mike and Kate by brand name, not necessarily by station. So if I download an app for my radio station, all that does is give me a destination to a station that delivers music, maybe sports, but a plethora of personalities. But I believe the next step is that people will select by brand name. I want to hear Rush Limbaugh, and I want to hear it now. Siri, play me Rush Limbaugh, Howard Stern.
Let me stop you there, because there are a bunch of questions I have about that. So in order to enable that, you need to have an app which allows you to do it, right? Because if I say I want Rush Limbaugh, you've got to you have to either have a Rush Limbaugh app that's designated, or you need to have some app that enables the receiving of Rush Limbaugh and does so on demand, right?
Right, correct. If I were a radio station today that had a contract with a big morning show, the first thing I would create would be an Android and an Apple, and to what extent Windows is coming out with Windows 8, with the next app that is branding that morning show. Because that's the way people are going to select shows, by name, not necessarily by station. So, Mark, to answer your question, is the brand the station, or is the brand the personality? And if that major winning morning show goes across the street, you can bet that audience is going to follow them.
Let's talk about that for a sec, because that's a great question. Because I guess it would be argued that in some cases the brand is the radio station. In some cases the brand is definitely not the radio station, right?
Correct. In San Diego, where you are, you had, Jeff and Jer?
Yes.
And Jeff and Jer have migrated through a few stations over the years, correct?
Right.
And the audience has migrated with them. So there's no reason to not believe that if Jeff and Jerry, to use an example, come out with the Jeff and Jerry app, and that app, by the way, may be downloaded for free, and maybe I'd like to hear the show for $5 a month for without commercials, or with commercials for free. So the consumer will basically choose their content, because remember, there's only 24 hours in a day. My commute to work is the same commute it was 5 years ago. So it's how I'm using my time. So I believe that the next generation of content delivery will be brand-based and, in fact, subscription-based in some cases. So, would a consumer pay $5 a month, not a lot of money, $5 a month to hear their favorite show that they've been listening to for years, commercial-free? I believe there's a market for that.
And just for the record, you're not making this up, right? You're actually practicing what you're preaching,
Yeah.
are you not?
Yeah, I am.
Talk about some of those
successes. I have a client. My clients, and I'm not pitching. Although I think he's a terrific talent. But we started Norman Goldman, a talk show host, and is on in a bunch of markets. But he's also available with an iPhone app. And because he's an attorney, we designed some additional content called Beyond the Norm, which is basically legal for dummies. It's people who wanted insight into the law world. And without revealing specific numbers, I can tell you that when we launched the Apple app and the Android app, and people were able to just hit the button and hear him, and so for an additional $5 a month, I can hear the show on demand, and I also get the Legal for Dummies stuff that he does, which is basically an 8 or 9 minute talk every day about legal issues, Supreme Court and stuff. $5 a month, I can tell you we're getting thousands of subscriptions, thousands of people who put it on their credit card. It hits every month. It's a de minimis amount of money that people would be willing to pay for to hear their favorite content commercial free. And if you're able to provide that, either as a broadcaster or as a personality, and Tom Likas will tell you the same thing, that there's a new world out there in terms of brand distribution. If you have a strong brand, whether it's Tom Likas, Jeff and Jared, Norman Goldman, Mike and Kate, our morning show in Boise, Idaho, there's an audience that will pay an amount of money to hear their show on demand, commercial free, when they want to, not when you broadcast it.
There's another aspect to this, too, isn't there? And that is that when you have a brand like that, you have these relationships with people, and that gives you, as a brand, the freedom to create new elements that are extensions of your brand. You were talking about Glenn Beck earlier.
Yeah. If you have Glenn Beck, for instance, has a company that launched the Blaze. It's a news portal. That's available, theblaze.com, which is extraordinarily successful. I think with the new Clear Channel, they're trying to do the deal with the record companies where it's a revenue-based model, not a listener based model where you pay for more listeners that you get. So the Pandora model, for instance, the Slacker model is the more listeners they get, the more they pay in fees. Under the revenue base, if I make money, you make money. And at least that's a lot more predictable. I see the wisdom in what Clear Channel has done, by the way, and I think it's pretty bright. I'd love to see the industry go that way, because the more Pandora listeners, they pick up tons of them, they certainly pay more for every listener. In the radio world, we don't pay more. Whether we have a 1 share or a 10 share, we pay the same for those listeners, our cost of delivering the listeners. If you are a personality, if you own a market, and, I read the trades every day just like you do, and you see Joe Blow, the big personality, was let go under a contract dispute, I believe the future will allow, in a local session, in a local market, where if you have an app, you can develop that app. You can build your personality online, on demand, in the car, on the dash, $4 or $5 a month, commercial free, or free with commercials, your choice. And broadcasters, I'm concerned, Mark, that broadcasters are still worried about the station down the street. You know, the guy who they compete with head to head. And I think the future is not so much that station, although that's important, but there's this other place that listeners, if I only have a 30-minute commute to work in the morning, I'm going to have my favorite local station. I might have satellite. I may have the show my favorite show that's on my app. Remember, it's on my dashboard. And looking at what the dashboard's going to look like in the next few years, it's going to look like your iPhone, you know, with the apps on it. And people are going to select via personality. I want to hear ESPN. I want to hear Glenn Beck. I want to hear Norman Goldman. I want to hear Mike and Kate. I want to hear Jeff and Jerry. That's the difference.
And doesn't it follow from that it's not distributing the content that's most important, it's owning the content?
Absolutely right. Absolutely, Mark. If you own the content, you're the king of the world. It's just a matter of making sure that all the distribution channels are there. We want to be where the people are. As a personality, you do not want to be limited to AM or FM, not when they're selling 81 million smartphones a year last year that have the capability of putting you on demand in real time right now. People are not going to wait for your show to begin. They want to hear it now. In PPM, in some markets, and I haven't seen them all, I'll admit, but the average time spent listening is 9 minutes. 9 minutes with PPM. Can you imagine you're doing a 3-hour show or a 4-hour show and your average audience is listening only 9 minutes? So if it were on demand, commercial free, and they would be willing to pay an amount of money for it, I suspect they would listen a lot more to your show.
Bill Figgenshoe is the fabulous head of Fig Media One. Among other things, Fig helps branded personalities become branded personalities and helps make that cash register ring.
Yeah.
Fig, thanks for your input. You've been such an incredible force in the radio industry for so many years. I am really, really excited for you, pleased and proud to call you a peer and hear the things you talk about as it relates to the future of this industry and the people who work in it. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Mark. I love it. And as you do, I'm still as excited about the business today as when we put our feet on the floor 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's a different world. We have to realize it. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely it is. Thank you, Fig.
Thanks, Mark.